are mental representations that we use based on what? How we learn, or from previous folks, how they pass knowledge down to us, right? And schemas, they do what? The way we think affects what? Our behavior, right? Quite broad. We have something called scripts. What are scripts? When you think about it, it tells you what? How you are supposed to act. We do this kind of automatically. I always tell my students, a perfect example is the first day of class. Why doesn't anyone choose to sit there if this was the desk?
Well, that's obviously the front of the room, and you don't want to be against it.
No, if this was the teacher's desk.
No.
Why do you don't sit there?
Shows authority or prestige, and you'd be stepping on someone else's foot.
Who says?
Society.
And that's automatic, right? How many of you have ever said, you know what, I see that, but I'm gonna sit right there? How many of you said that? We act.
Be honest.
You can be honest. We act very unconsciously. We follow scripts. We follow scripts. No one has to tell you that. You just do it automatically, right? So do these things automatically. So teachers, administration, all of these individuals act out behaviors automatically. No one has to give you a script anymore, right? No one has to do that. So I'm challenging all of you. The next time you go in your class, who dares? Go down to the front and stand at the bottom, at that podium. I dare you. Just let me know. Email me and tell me how it works. Okay? Right. You've been taught it, right? That's like over here. Just kidding. But these again are actors, and they affect how resources are disseminated, right, and how resources are accessed. Okay. The cycling of resources. Just as a quickie. All right. So again, if you think about, if anybody's thinking like development site, you have somebody called Bronfenbrenner. Anybody ever heard of Bronfenbrenner? Okay, I won't go into that because it's like a long whole another. But I'm just going to show you how we think about resources. Okay. So according to Bronfenbrenner, we have something called the macro system. Macro meaning large, big, right. So, right, very good. So macro system, in terms of social systems, is what they think about in terms of like ideas and beliefs and culture. Because those things we cannot touch, ideas. But we see them manifest, yes? We see beliefs manifest. So this is what he calls macro. So macro ideas and beliefs. We talked about a national identity. Why do you think that as the United States we keep talking about performance and performance on tests? Why are performance and performance on tests so important?
Don't we compare ourselves to other countries?
Yes. And we want a national identity that does what for us? Come on, be honest.
Number one.
We're gonna be number one. Are we number one right now?
No way. No.
Exchange? No. We are horrible in terms of our peer countries and how we rank for education, especially on what they call science and math. Okay? So the national identity, the idea in me says what? I can't accept this. What do I have to do? I have to do what? Improve my rank. So what do? That's an idea. So what happened with the idea of improving our rank in schools? Anybody, NCLBA, what do you guys think that is? Anybody who's from the United States? If you would, yes. Yes, very good. So we passed the policy called No Child Left Behind Act. And our goal was to do what? Through this policy.
To make everyone.
To make everyone equal, to improve, yes, to improve education, because we had to improve our global rank, right? We need to make sure that our students were doing better in education. Doing better in education. Now we have, if anybody is watching politics, does anybody know what ESSA is? It's called Every Student Succeeds Act. Obama passed that. Pretty much almost very similar to No Child Left Behind. So we passed the policy, right? We passed the policy, and then what happens when we pass the policy? What does it do? It influences what? Resources. Because what did we do as, once we passed that, we told states that you had to do what? To get funding. And you had to do what?
Have your kids pass or something.
That's
like
correct. Right. So you have to institute these particular standards, institute these particular practices for students to do better in classes, and that influenced what happened in the school, right? And so that influenced the practices, and then what did that influence? The ways in which students and teachers interacted. So again, if you follow popular media, there were teachers cheating, right? So teachers were cheating on tests because they wanted to do what? They wanted their students to pass so that their schools and they themselves can get resources, okay? So people were doing different things in classrooms to help get students to perform better, and that influenced what? Student outcomes. And we get something called our performance standards. North Carolina releases performance standards called EOCs, and tests, performance standards. And every year, it places students on a hierarchy. The students who are usually at the bottom are who?
Minority, lower income students.
Lower income, indigenous, original indigenous, Native American, Hispanic, and African American students. And you see this in a beautiful chart. That chart has these students at the bottom. And that chart influences what? If we see this visual image, what does it influence? If we see this visual image over and over again, it influences people's what?
Perception.
Beliefs, perception, beliefs and ideas. And so people tend to start to believe what? If you are poor and you are black or you are Hispanic, you're not as smart. They challenge your intellectual ability. And then it goes back into the cycle over and over again. And all of this is still about what? Resources. The following of human, economic, and resources. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
Where would Common Core fall in this cycle?
Policies. Because the Common Core was a movement, and states had the opportunity to opt in or opt out. In those states that opt in, there was additional funding associated with that if they decided to adopt the Common Core. All right, are there any questions about this? All right, I want to show you how this plays out. This is a piece that we published talking about the politicalization process. Anybody want to guess what politicalization is? Politicalization. What do you think it is? You politicalize something. Yes.
I guess making things political, like having an agenda behind doing it, really.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Excellent. I love that. It is. It's how do you use what we call like these narratives that may not necessarily be accurate, but you engage in political processes based on it. So a perfect example, macro. We're talking about, what did we say macro was? Ideas and beliefs. So this is just giving you an example of zero tolerance. In the 90s, we had some incidents of mass school shootings. What's probably the most famous case that you guys can maybe think about? Starts with a C. Columbine. Okay? So there was this idea that, whoa, our schools aren't safe. There was also something coming out in terms of the idea, there was some things that happened like the Central Park 5 and other cases that happened that led us to believe that we have to criminalize our young people. They're out of control. Youth, they're out of control. It's an idea. They're out of control. So politicians, they took that and they said what? What do you think? It's an idea. What do we want to do?
Make a law.
Make a law. Let's make a law. Let's make a law so we can decrease the idea of violence in schools. So President Clinton signed the Gun-Free Schools Act in 1994. Gun-Free Schools Act told states, again, you must adopt what we call zero-tolerance policies because we want to remove violence in schools. If you adopt these policies, implement these policies, you have the opportunity to receive funding associated with that, okay? So what happened was we had schools gone rogue. Anybody know what that means? What does it mean to go rogue?
Not accept the policy.
Oh, what did you say?
Not accept the policy.
Okay, kind of something like that. So what happened was schools adopted zero tolerance policies and they said, we're going to blanket everything. You kicked someone's chair, you're out of here. Yes. Dress code violation, you're out of here. That could be a precursor to violence. You roll monk band, you're playing your music, you're out of here. Schools went rogue. They started applying zero tolerance policies to what we call arbitrary school offenses, like dress code violation, excessive noise, whatever that means. Disruption, okay, maybe. Insubordination, possibly. Saying a curse word, meh. And so they established these policies. It influenced how teachers and students engage, yes. But then what happened? What do you think happened? Where do you think I'm going with this? They established these zero tolerance policies.
Increase in people being suspended and expelled.
So they increased the numbers of students who were being expelled and suspended annually, okay? That number has increased from, I think, roughly 35%, an increase of 35% since the 80s, since 1994, I'm sorry. But what happened was you have something called DMC, disproportionate minority contact. They found the Southern League, Lawson and Skiba did a whole national study on this. And they found that Black and Hispanic students were doing the same offense as their white peers, but they were given out-of-school suspension. An administrator would look at the same offense, and African American students were 3.5 times more likely to be sent home. What happens when you go home? You get to do what? If you're suspended, what do? Well, you get to watch TV, probably, maybe. You get to sleep, okay? Do you get to have academic time?
No.
So if you are suspended 3 days, what's it like missing a class 1 week at NC State?
Couldn't miss this class.
Okay, so if you are absent
Not a main master.
3 days, right? So a minimum of 3 days. You come back. Are you going to be ahead or behind? So if a teacher gives you a test when you come back, and you look at that test and you tell yourself, I have never seen this before, what is your initial response? Or how about I do this? You ever get that professor who gives you an exam and you tell yourself, we didn't even cover this? What is your initial response?
You're infuriated.
You're gonna fail.
So some level of angst sits in. You start thinking that you're going to fail. I'm going to fail. Anything else? So what happens? So I have this stress response, right? But what else happens? I'm behind, yes.
You sort of stop caring because you're like, well, there's no point. I'm trying
Right.
to work yourself up.
Okay. So you start, we call that disassociation. You begin to disassociate from an academic task or school itself, right? So again, if we're finding that these policies overwhelmingly is suspending young kids of color, overwhelmingly is suspending people who don't have the resources to be engaged in like private tutoring or something when they're suspended, then what are we doing? What are we doing? Yes.
Causing that disassociation.
Yes, you're leading, you're contributing. We have to be careful in like to say cause, right? We're contributing to that, okay? So again, what happens when the media says 80% of students suspended in North Carolina are poor and black? What does that do for your perception? What does that do? If you were to see this in the news, see this in the media, and you see it over and over again, what do you start to think? Yes.
Those bad children are poor and black.
Most black, yes. Very good, yes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when you see on the news like a certain class of people are, getting suspended, you think they're either trouble kids or it's, that class that's
Yes.
acting out.
Right, and it's that class, and they're probably that way, and that's why they're the way that they are. It reinforces our beliefs and our ideas. And unfortunately, again, when you look at this idea of the way in which resources are passed, and you guys just said, if I'm not in school, and I see that I'm being suspended, I'm being sent out, or somebody who looks different from me does the same offense, and they're not sent home, then am I singing hallelujah? Isn't this such a beautiful place? What does it do to me? What does it do to my psyche? What does it do to the way I think about myself? Just asking. Don't be afraid. Or maybe you're not afraid, just like, oh, whatever. I'm just trying to get up. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I don't really care for that. Okay. How we doing with time? I had time.
We
I was about 10 minutes late.
I think we got 10 to 15 minutes left.
10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so I wanted to share with you, I tell two schools, share with you this picture. And so the young man here says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Who comes to right?
The elephant is okay.
You said the elephant may not make it?
You might want to tear the tree down.
Yeah.
Well, certainly the dust. That
He can say
teachers
exam. Forget exams.
I got you, exam.
I'm an elephant and I'm happy to be an elephant. I don't need no exam necessarily to quantify or qualify me. Well, can that fish tear down that tree? So how do you propose that they climb it?
They try their best.
Huh? They try their best?
They help each other.
They help each other? Okay, I like that.
It's
Okay.
kind of the inequity type kind of thing, because you're asking, obviously,
Swept
the
that
fish
smile off the
can't
monkey's face to look
climb,
at it.
but you're asking the same thing from the fish as the other creature.
Uh-huh. So you said they help each other? Well, come on, you guys. Come on. Let's all be honest with ourselves. Do we help each other? Do we? Not, not kind of like the study groups where we all kind of, do we do that? Maybe, somewhat.
Some people.
Some people do. Some people do.
I think the monkey would actually carry the fish. He looks like it.
Okay, so that's what she said.
No,
So maybe the
no.
monkey will say, you know what, fish, I realize that it may be pretty difficult for you.
He gets on the back of the
Huh?
elephant, and then they're there.
And he gets home back to the
Won't that be considered cheating though, since it's the exam?
Oh, is it cheating?
We're student A, right? Yes. So then that means we need to switch with student B, right? Sometimes have student A live in a small little town. The school where the majority of the teachers live.
I guess in arguing that he's privileged to be.
Is that what it sounds
This is about they switch places.
It's one of the well-meted
Large home in Greenwich.
So everything's.
Heather, who would like to share a student B? Student B, I have.
We were supposed to be A, but we wrote it on the half, so we apologize. But we can share.
Okay, go ahead. Let's listen.
Student A is named John and lives in a large home in Greenwich, Connecticut. He currently attends one of the top private schools in the United States, tuition $50,000 a year. Oh, by the way, his parents own it. His parents both have PhDs in chemistry and physics. He has access to many private tutors, high-end technology, as well as transportation. His class size is a maximum of 5 students per class, the best student-teacher ratio in the world. He has recently been accepted to Harvard University, where his father has a library named after him.
Wow. Go ahead, student B. Very nice. Can I hear the life of student A? Anybody got student A? Yeah, we have one group. Okay, go ahead.
That's on us.
All right. Now, how did y'all get student A? I'm kind of mad at that, but that's my perception. Let's keep it going.
Okay. Student A lives in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, a rural community. Not many schools in the area, and has to help his parents on a small farm. Many times he has to help his parents harvest strawberries or interact with other peers. His school is overcrowded and many teachers are leaving for better paying jobs. Low morale in education throughout the school. He's thinking of dropping out.
He's thinking of dropping out, but let's just say that student A just has the resources and he gets that great score and he gets to go to Harvard. Because Harvard does. You know, they do a little outreach in low-income communities, okay? What happens for student A and student B at Harvard? Huh?
Student A is at the bottom of his class,
Okay,
and they can't even do that.
okay.
Student B flourishes.
And student B flourishes, okay? I want y'all to pass those stories. I don't collect those. They do matter to me because I don't really have that much time. Okay, I'm just trying to anchor something in here. All right, so we're going to end with this. What is well-being? What does it mean to live well? What does it mean to live well? Huh? Yes, of course it is. Yes.
I think he has.
Okay, to live happy, okay. Fulfilling life. What about well-being, though? So be able to have food, water, shelter, okay, so like basic needs, okay, yes? Huh? Sustain that, anything else? When you think of well-being, what factors influence your well-being? What factors influence your ability to keep smiling, to be happy, to live well? Yes?
It's body, soul, spirit that's taken care of.
Okay, so feeling like your body, your soul, spirit is being taken care of. Anything else? What helps you to live well?
Support from friends and family.
Support from family and friends. Anything else? What helps you to live well?
Able to provide for myself and my children.
Being able to provide for self and children. What helps you live well? Helps you to keep smiling. You're just smiling a lot. Huh?
Constant napping.
But that's a privilege, right? So the idea that you are able to sleep. Very good. Okay. Anything else? You have the ability and the privilege to rest. What else? Good food. Okay. Very good. What else? What else?
Extracurricular activities.
So being engaged in like extracurricular activities, having like time is privilege because you have the time to engage in extracurricular activities. Anything else?
Be able to help somebody else.
So being able to help someone else, okay? So again, I'm shortening this because of time. The essence of well-being, Myers 1998, from an African-centered perspective, the essence of well-being is tied to an ethos of resilience, and that is the body, the mind, and the spirit, as you said. That my mind has to be well, my psyche has to be well in order for me to thrive. If, as we know, again, when we talk about in the field of psychology, we understand like things such as neurotransmitters, such as serotonin, things like dopamine and cortisol at the neurological level affects our physiology, right? So the psyche has an influence on the body, and this idea of spirit needing energy, that we need that to live well. When we need that to live well, okay? But what happens when things do not allow us to live well? What happens when we experience, again, public education, alienation, when I feel that I do not have power to change my situation and my circumstance, and I feel this over and over again? What happens when I do not see myself and I develop what we call meaninglessness because I don't see myself here? I feel like I don't have value because that's the messages that I receive. What happens when we have something called normlessness? So because I don't fit here, what am I going to do? And some people we call fight or flight response, right? And sometimes I have to fight this. And that may mean that I lash out in very aggressive ways, but it may also mean that I do things that are in opposition to the culture, like create something as beautiful as hip-hop and jazz and rock and roll and blues, because I have to get out this energy, right? What happens when I feel estranged? What does that do to my psyche? What does that do to my psyche, to my body, to my mind? When I'm engaged in something called microaggressions. Anybody want to guess what microaggressions are? Small acts of aggression. When that teacher says, it happened to my daughter, you're taking this calc class, she took calculus, she's taking calculus her senior year this year. And the teacher said, I don't know if this is the class for you. My daughter's been taking AP classes since her sophomore year. She's been in AIG since 3rd grade. And the teacher said, I don't know if you can handle it. But you get that told to you over and over again. You start questioning who you are, right? These are microaggressions. Or what happens if, I don't know if anybody has seen this, what are the psychological implications when you're sitting in a class and this is what you see? And I want you to pay attention to those things.
I'll be back. Give me your hands. Give me your hands.
They kept working. You desensitize yourself, but you see that. Anybody seen that video? Of the young lady, apparently didn't want to go at the time, and so this was the reaction. What happens to your psyche? Do you think you can truly maximize the idea of well-being? Huh? What happens if you guys every day had to worry about somebody coming to your campus and engaging, like what happens at Virginia Tech? Do you think you would be in a somewhat calm state? Okay? We have to understand how again, public education influences what we call trauma and the effects of that. And again, as we talked about, how do we fight back? How do you continue to move on? If you had these kind of experiences, if you saw this, how would you bounce back? I'm just asking. Have any of you ever experienced adversity? How did you bounce back? How did you continue to push through? Yes.
Me personally, I guess in my situation, I lost my dad, and then to alleviate that, I just worked really, really, really hard,
Yeah.
and that's how I
So
cope.
you kind of immerse yourself in your work because of the way of redirecting your energy and focus. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. It's very personal. How do you bounce back? What do you use? So primarily when we're talking about the experience, the African American experience, the African American experience historically in terms of public education, it's really important to understand how do young people continue to move through and push through despite this over and over again. And remember, it's not always like physical violence, it's psychological. It's the implicit language that you hear. It's people questioning you, are you here because you got a scholarship to meet a quota? You didn't really get it because you're smart, right? It's being in a class where a professor doesn't think you're as good as or minimizes your intellectual ability because of something as basic as phenotype, the color of one's skin. Or when you're walking down the street and people clutch their pocketbook or walk on the other side. Or when you're in a classroom and you're flipping through the book, and the only thing you're able to learn about yourself is slavery and Martin Luther King. As if your people didn't do anything else but be slaves and engage in civil rights. So you have to kind of think about that, okay? And that's kind of my charge to you guys today. And I guess to close this all out, because of time, I would like everybody, because you know it's been kind of quiet, we're going to do the round robin. Just freely say, before, now I. So finish this statement, before this session, now I think, or now I know this. Who wants to start? No, we can say that.
I'll go.
Yes.
Now I know that public education is pretty bad. Blair, give me that.
So because now it reaffirmed in some sense. Okay. All right. Share. Yes.
I guess going back to education, I didn't really realize how many kids got suspended over these little things like that.
Yes.
Now I realize like the cycling and how just like the policies that they enact, just how much it affects things more than they originally seemed.
Yes.
Before the session, you know, I kind of understood that there was a marginalization of minorities in public school systems, but I didn't really know why. But now kind of seeing how the circular flow of resources kind of navigates how, you know, really the destiny of some of these students have more of a tangible understanding.
Smiley, sir. Hopefully it's something beyond that. I think I heard that from the other place.
I guess, I don't know, before I didn't realize how much policy really affected education. Now I realize that policy affects every step of education, including the macro idea that creates the new policy, I guess.
So kind of what we call like that bi-directional process, so
Yeah.
even like you just said, how policy can influence macro level factors. Good. Yes. Yes.
Before this session, I was knowledgeable of what was going on. After the session, I think I can verbalize what I know better.
So kind of name it in an interesting way. Okay. so hesitant to talk. Yes.
I think before I had a physical understanding of kind of like what you were talking about, like split and stuff, but I guess I didn't really explore like what you were talking about microaggressions and how teachers can say things and maybe not know what they're saying. Just realizing that I just was so unaware of that.
So this whole term about microaggression.
Yeah, and just kind of like the day-to-day kind of effect that public education has.
Okay, very good. Yep, everyone knows the do. Come on.
I've tried that, doesn't work.
Before I learned about it, I feel like a funding problem, like a property taxing situation. But now I'm like able to have more, look at it in like a different way, more like personal experiences. So it kind of brought them both together.
So not just think that it's economic
Yeah.
funding, but resources in a different way. Okay. Bring it on home. You guys are the tell. Anybody want to try?
Those of you who have not said anything have 1 minute to say it.
Come on, yeah.
Well, before, I kind of like taking advantage of some of the resources I've been given, but now I have like a better knowledge of like the different situations certain people are in.
Okay.
I never thought of experiences as resources, which actually makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, you said that. You have said that. Good. Yes.
Before this session, I kind of know every piece of the information.
Yeah.
I never like connect them together to build a circle. And
Kind of that cycle.
that circle makes things even worse. Kind of.
Okay. All right. I think that's fair. Well, thank you all so much. It's been a joy. I just feel it. No, I'm just kidding. And I hope that again, that you know, as you leave here, just an awareness sometimes, because sometimes we just need to see things outside of what we call at the surface, right? So what are some things that's kind of a little bit deeper to help us understand behavior quite broadly. So thank you so much for your time and energy, and right back at you, okay?
Okay. I need a little bit more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Henderson will be joining us, I believe, so I'm sure you have questions. You can interrogate her